Well. Hey, everybody, it's Romania Black, and I'm so sad because we're on the movie Puella Magi Madoka Magica, the movie that is Rebellion, whatever that means. And we're on the last anime installment for now. I was talking in the Discord about this, and I mentioned that there was another movie supposedly coming out, and someone in the Discord, I can't remember who, but they were like, yeah, this Rebellion movie, it came out 10 years ago. And I was like, actually, it was Elfreya. Elfreya said that the movie came out 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, shit. They're like, so I'll believe this new movie when I see it. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry you all have had to wait a decade, potentially, to see more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Honestly, knowing this series is from that long ago, it puts a different perspective on understanding why the fandom is so massive. Not only because the show is high quality enough to earn a fandom like that, because it is. It's literally a perfect series. I have no complaints. But it makes sense that a fandom has been around for a decade, so it's had lots of time to do fan art, to do lore, to do all this, and there's a lot of media associated with this series. And I've had a lot of people ask, and I had Pancake on the Discord make a list of all the things I have to see. I did glance at it. I didn't glance hard at it because they were like, don't click on any links until you're done with the movie, and I was like, okay. So I decided that as far as the manga goes, because there was some manga recommended, right now, I don't have time on my channel to do manga reactions. And plus, manga reactions, they don't usually get a lot of ground coverage. Not a lot of people leave comments and talk about it. They're just like, oh, that was cool. And they're a lot of work to do. And you don't get much reward out of them. So I'm going to put the manga off to the side. There's a couple arcs that Pancake pinned. I'm going to keep it pinned on the channel. If I get to a lull and I'm like, oh, I want to do something crazy, I'll go to those manga. However, I do have a series that is ending at the end of this month. And so what I think I'm going to do, or the end of July rather, what I think I'm going to do at the end of July is on 2 Saturdays at the end of the month, I'm going to split them up. And one Saturday, I'm going to look at one of the audio dramas, the first audio drama, along with the new opening that someone sent a link to in Pancake's pin, as well as a new transformation sequence. I want to see all of that, so I'm going to see that on that one Saturday. And then the other Saturday, I'm going to look at audio drama 3, which they said I should look at, along with a parody video they tagged and the bloopers. So I'm like, that'll be some Puella Magi Madoka Magica content in July, and then we'll just wait till either the movie comes out, or if I get a lull, I'll go back to the manga. So we'll see. Or I might even, if I get spare time outside of the channel, I might read the manga and come back and talk about it. Who knows? But I'm sad that Puella Magi Madoka Magica is ending, but at the same time, it's been such an amazing ride and it feels so complete that I'm not sad. I'm honestly really excited that I got the chance to see this series in its entirety and experience it and talk to you all about it, because Dana had asked in the Discord, they're like, have you never heard of this series before? And I was like, honestly, no. I went through a period in college where anime had like blown up, but I only knew about the big 3 shonen and like a handful of other series like Black Butler and Cowboy Bebop. I didn't really know about any other series. I dodged a lot of the pop culture stuff that was happening years and years ago. And honestly, I told them in the Discord, I had seen Kyubey like at a convention, like a plush of Kyubey. I had seen it on a shelf and I was like, oh, that's cute. But I never looked up what it was. So yeah, I dodged a bullet and here we are. Soul gems and everything. I've got a couple comments before we start. Bampsy noted that the grief seed that saved Homura in the timeline was Sayaka's. And I was like, oh. In that one timeline in episode 10 where Homura and her are about to turn into witches and Madoka uses the grief seed to absorb the negative energy out of Homura's soul gem, that was Sayaka's. And I was like, oh my God. So it hits me in that moment that's why another reason, not only the reason we get last episode, but another reason why Sayaka can't be brought back, because otherwise the timelines will not work. Sayaka's death is now intrinsically threaded into the fabric of Madoka's entire existence as this deity. And I'm like, oh, mind-blowing. I love it. Also, Pancake noted that the red ribbon could also be connected to the red string of fate. Love it. Love it. Frelly 7057 noted to go back to the conversation between Madoka and Homura in the first part of episode 1, and now I went back and watched it, and now it makes so much sense why Homura is so like awkward and uncomfortable in that moment, because she wants to call Madoka like by her first name and treat her like she has the entire time, but she can't. But she's been through this timeline like hundreds of times, and so the replay value of this series is something I'm really excited about. I want to buy the Blu-ray. I want to own it. I want to be able to pop it in when I'm sick. Is it weird that this could be a comfort anime? I feel like the way that it ends, it kind of is in a weird way. I really like it. Arksy talks about Junko, which is Madoka's mom, and Hitomi are kind of similar. They seem like the kind of people who go out and get things for themselves, which has kind of been foreshadowed and hinted at the entire time. Junko is able to have like the job, drink with the boys, have confidence, have assuredness in herself, all the things that Madoka throughout most of the series lacks. And Hitomi kind of has the same thing when she goes after Kamijo and tell Sayaka, hey, I'm going to go ask him out. I hope that's cool. And so they were also talking in the comment that that's another reason why Kyubey doesn't target Hitomi, because she doesn't need a wish. She's got it all figured out. And I'm like, damn, that's really, really cool. And then finally, yeah, Elfreya noted that the movie came out 10 years ago. So that's interesting, some retro. And then also talked about, I want to say too that later on today, if you're watching this on YouTube, July 7th at 1 p.m. I don't know if this is today for you all, if you're watching this on YouTube, or if it'll be next week if you're watching this on Patreon. But at 1 p.m. today, we're going to do a live stream about Madoka, talk about it now that you all have seen my reaction to the movie. We can talk about the content. I don't want to go into details about the audio drama or the other stuff yet, because I'll be looking at those at the end of July, but we can talk about the main series as a whole, right? I think that part will be really, really interesting. So yeah, that's what I got. I want to give a special shout out to Geen. Geen y'all have left so many comments. There have been, and I love that. I love watching a show and having lots of people comment and interact with the show, because you guys, like these commenters have posted, you give me so much material to look through and new things and ways to think about it. I freaking love it. And so obviously having a moderator, it not only is myself going through the comments, but it's that person as well. So I want to give a special shout out to Geen, because Geen has taken time the last 12 weeks to go through comments week after week, filter out the ones with spoilers to make sure I wasn't spoiled. I got through this series without any spoilers. I'm so happy. It's like one of the first series that there's been like no spoilers at all. And I was like, yes, I did it. And so I'm so happy that Geen, you took the time to do that for me. I really appreciate it. So all of my love to you, Geen. All of my love to Pancake for pinning that for me and gathering those materials. And all of my love to you all for following me along this journey. I feel like now I've crossed a threshold, and now I have a Kyubey. I can keep him on the back burner. I'm not going to destroy him now, because you know what? We beat him. But I feel so much better having watched this big pop culture moment in anime that I feel like anybody should be watching this series. It's so good. And there's so many themes that are so awesome about it. So anyway, we have a 2-hour movie to get through. I went to the very last segment. How long is this movie? 1 hour and 56 minutes. I'm like, yes, please. Which, you know, like 5 minutes, that's going to be in credits. But so I've hunkered down. I may or may not have made an adult beverage out of this coffee. It seemed like a good choice, though. And I have this big flowy dress on because this feels like Madoka in her final form. But I have no clue what this is going to be about. No clue. We've already introduced time travel into the original series, so that makes me wonder, like, I know there were recap movies, but I didn't look at those because I hate recap movies. I hate them. If there's no other new content, I just watched the anime. Why would I watch a recap? So I didn't watch those, but the Discord had told me there was nothing really new in them to see, so we'll see. But anyway, I'm super excited. I've talked enough for nearly 10 minutes, so let's get started. We're going to talk about Madoka and do the reaction for this Rebellion movie. And we're going to do this here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. Oh, you poor sweet baby. I also realized as I grabbed Cube to bring him down here that he sticks to your arm. This. He doesn't go anywhere. He won't let me go. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely gonna have to have Cube for the live stream, that's for sure. Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Well, I would compare this movie to End of Evangelion a lot, except I may like it more than in End of Evangelion. I may like it more. I think it may make more sense than End of Evangelion, if I'm honest. And that is a hard thing to say. Kyubey's going to stick with me throughout most of this, so I feel like it's only fair Kyubey has to suffer through this. Holy cow, I think that this actually is more logical than End of Evangelion, if you can believe it. It all makes sense. By the end of it, it's like, holy shit, Homura. It all makes sense by the end. And I'm like, oh, the first hour of this movie, I was looking at the clock as I was watching being like, I feel like a lot of things are happening and we still have an hour to go. And then I was like, oh, we still have 40 minutes to go. We still have 20 minutes to go. What else are they going to throw at us? They threw everything, including the kitchen sink. And it made so much sense. And honestly, I walked into this film being legit terrified when I sat down to watch it today. I wasn't going to tell you all because I wanted to see what was going to happen. And I was so pleasantly surprised. But I was so worried because, I'm not going to lie, when episode 12 ended, I don't know if y'all noticed in the reaction, but I didn't have much to say about the Wraiths. And mainly it was because they all looked the same and it was all samey and it was very sanitized, and I was sitting there going in my head being like, well, I don't want to bitch about it, but Shaft does such an amazing job with the artwork and the symbolism and breaking down, like, I'm sure there are some of you who have watched this series 30 times and can probably, as some of you have said in the comments, find little tiny things each and every time that you rewatch that you didn't see before. And it just like, it just impacts me so much that this studio cared so much for this story to make it so deep and rich. And yet you see these little tiny details. And so when we saw the Wraiths at the end of episode 12, I was like, yeah, they're going to fight these Wraiths. And that's a thing. But they're just so boring as an antagonist. And I was like, boring as an antagonist. And so going into this movie, I didn't know if it was going to be like a flashback. It seemed at first like I thought that it was going to like recontextualize and expand upon all the different timelines and give us that. But then I was like, what's the rebellion? Well, the rebellion is Homura. Homura's the rebellion. She does not want Madoka to live the rest of her existence as a god. And it turns out Madoka doesn't really want to either. Surprising no one. And what I love about it is Homura, it's completely in line with her character. Her character from the moment that she chose to sacrifice her soul to save Madoka, it was like a confession. It's like a confession. She's like, I'll sell my soul and give it up so that you can live. And I love, it's not a curse of hatred or a curse of sadness or despair. It's love. Her curse is love. She's like, because I loved you so deeply, all this is happening. And Homura's had to deal with the fact that everything she's done has led Madoka to make this big, giant decision to become a god when Homura's like, why did that have to be you? And Homura's like, well, it's fine. And then as we find out when she confronts her in the world, it's like, no, it's not fine. Nobody should have to have that thrust upon them. So Homura makes the decision to say, you know what? I was supposed to die to begin with. You were supposed to die to begin with. I sacrificed my soul to become a witch to save you. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But you don't want me to become a witch, so fine. If you won't let me become a witch, I'll become a demon. And then I'll control this realm and I'll let you live your life out the way it was supposed to be, and I'll be here too. And if one day you gain your magical powers back and you get your memories and magical power back and you want to fight me, I'll be here waiting. And I'm like, oh my God! it's just like, I'm a huge sucker for an angel and demon motif. I'm a huge sucker for angel and demon motifs. Such a big, I'm also like angels, demons, and dragons. And we had angels and demons and salamanders, which are like adjacent to dragons. So this, it was just like thematically it made sense. But the thing about it is that it left you guessing all the way up until the end, all the way up until the very last scene. You're left guessing like Homura's entire intentions. And she's just like, you know what? I've been through 12 years of the same damn timeline. I am not about to let you, mother trucker, hurt Madoka. And I should have known from episode 12 when Kyubey was sitting there being like, oh, wow, these witches, this witch concept that you're talking about, it seems like a pretty efficient way to gather energy. I'm like, oh my God. And you could tell Homura at that point was like, don't be getting any ideas, Kyubey. And what does he do? He gets some ideas. And so basically Kyubey in this movie was the embodiment by the last scene of fuck around and find out. That's exactly what happened. And I was like, oh my God. So I want to go through this movie. Am I going to spend 2 hours talking about it like I did End of Evangelion? I don't know, because so much of it, I feel like we're going to talk about in the live stream. I feel like I would have to watch this movie 1,000 times over to get every single little tiny piece. But we're going to go through it. We're going to go through it, all of us. My dog is like, hi, I've been sitting patiently waiting on you this entire time. So this is basically like the little soul gem that Huckleberry has. He has this, I love that the soul gem becomes like the top of the queen piece. Hey, it's the queen piece of chess. That's what it becomes. She's the queen. And in chess, if you've never played chess before, the queen can move anywhere on the board. The king can only go one direction and can only go one space at a time. So that's really, so honestly, what it ends up being is like Madoka is kind of like the king piece, where she is the ultimate, but she can only do so much, right? Whereas Homura, if you want to look at it this way, becomes the queen piece that can move anywhere at any given time, but its entire mission is to protect the king piece. Yes. Love it so much. And that's kind of the thing, was that the idea was that she was like, even after, because after episode 12, the problem was that there were still magical girls, there were still curses, and that despair was still an energy source for Kyubey. So yeah, so it was going to be endless. So there not only was that, and that's why it was kind of bittersweet at the end of episode 12, because you not only had all that going on, but then you had Madoka, who had been relegated to this like alternate time-bending god that was forever dealing with the witches. And it's like, if you have this all-powerful being, it's like that's all they do all day, every day for eternity. And Homura was like heartbroken. She's like, that's not fair. I don't want that to be Madoka's fate just because she wanted to protect me. So Homura's solution to this, which is like the ultimate, it's like Madoka sacrificed herself, and we'll talk about this when we get to that scene, for the sake of all of the magical girls in the world. And all of the girls that could become magical girls, she sacrificed herself for all of them. It's like, you know, one for all. It's kind of like it's literally one for all versus all for one. Kind of. And Homura's like, yeah, you sacrificed your soul and everything about you and your existence to save all of humanity. I'm going to sacrifice myself and my existence to save you. And it's like, huh. So then, meanwhile, Homura decides, no, we might have magical girls, but Kyubey's kind is going to take care of the curses. And that's going to give not only Madoka, but Sayaka and Mommy and Bebe, who is essentially Charlotte, Bebe, or BB, a chance at life again. And instead, she's going to get this cool, like, salamander earpiece that was shown next to in that one scene with Madoka. And in turn, in exchange for all of that, Homura is going to become a demon. She becomes a demon, something stronger than a witch, but not quite a human anymore. Like, it's bittersweet, it's somber, it's heartbreaking, but it's heartwarming, because it's like, and honestly, I don't know if they're gonna make another movie. I mean, they say that they are. The Wikipedia page says that Shaft's working on it. It's supposed to come out this winter at some point. I think there's a trailer about it. I might look at it during the live stream. I might look at it when we're done with the audio dramas. I don't know yet. I might wait, because last time I looked at a trailer like Yuri on Ice, it didn't end up getting making. So we're just gonna maybe avoid that. But the point is, I could see them doing a number of things. I could see them possibly doing an alternate timeline situation. I could see them going on from this story and showing like Homura versus Madoka and them ending up together after Kyubey and his kind have left. I will talk about that, but it's just the most satisfying thing is Kyubey gets their comeuppance at the very end. All of those things that they did, they finally get comeuppance for it. And it's glorious. We'll get to that. But yeah, they have to embrace curses and fight onward. The price we paid to obtain our miracles was to take a destiny of battle upon our souls. And Homura's like, yeah, by disappearing from this world, we would escape our fate of despair. And then we kind of see, like, from the beginning, it shows her, like, sinking into the labyrinth, into the witch's world. And you can see Kyubey and them messing with her soul gem from the start. It was all set up, and with the door that was closed and then wrapped up with the ribbon. Oh my god. I dreamt I encountered a familiar smile once again. To continue, what does she say there? I dreamt I saw that smile one more time. Yeah. And she talks about like an unending battle, but yeah. So, oh my god. I want to get through all of this and talk through it, and my dog's going to be annoying me, so you just bear with him. But can we talk about the animation real quick? Shaft Studios did an incredible job. All of this is so good. It's incredible. It looks so wonderful. Standing ovation. They did an amazing job animating this. This was like a tour de force. It was just like eye candy. I wanted to see this on the big screen. And like everything. So the Welcome to the Cinema, the movie that we're all watching an illusion from the beginning. I'm watching Uramichi Onisan, and they have a bear and a rabbit in that show, and this opening rainbow has a bear and a rabbit, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. But everything is like Madoka. It's pink, it's hearts, it's the dancers. The patchwork quilt kind of relates to all the different timelines that have been strung together with Homura. I'm like, oh, it all makes sense now. All of it makes sense that this was her labyrinth. And you would ask, you're like, well, how could there be such a giant labyrinth here? Well, because just like how Madoka had built up all this karmic destiny her timeline being redone over and over again, Homura has redone the timeline over and over again as well. So she's built up that despair within herself as well. So it makes sense that the labyrinth that her witch makes would be insane. So, oh my god. But yeah, so the idea of the nightmares, I love just like the 3D and all of the like little like patchwork cutouts that are in this scene. The fact that the hands of Homura that are like the preface, that are the hands of the nightmare, one of them has like the red string of fate around its middle finger. Cutting off the circulation, it's so good. And it's so fun because at first you see all of them back in action and you're like, oh, well, what could this be? And then we get that opening song and it's them with the nightmare trying to feed it food and getting it cornered. And you're like, well, this isn't exactly how it was in the series. And then you see them all gathered around the table together. There are two fire hearths. One is lit up and one is not. All of this is like an amalgamation of memories. It's a dream within a dream. Them gathering around the table with the witch. Bibi is here, which is crazy. And then I just love that at the beginning you're confused whether it's an alternate timeline or what's going on. I will say, the one weird thing in this whole movie that kind of threw me off, that I don't think the original series did, was draw attention to mommy's boobs. Did the original series do that? I don't feel like it did. There was a couple shots in this that were a little sexualized, and I was like, that's weird. Like the shot of mommy's boobs, her boobs just got, mommy didn't get a ship, she just got bigger mass. That's literally what happened with her character. Except she did kind of get a ship. I guess if her and BB are together, I guess you could ship them. They're like cheese. It's like Brie and Gouda is basically their ship name. But yeah, good morning to you, Nightmare. And they have a little song about confronting the nightmare and the bad dreams will never come again. I like the idea that it is the nightmare is what it's called, which it really is. Homura's nightmare is the dreamscape that they're in. So basically the idea was that Kyubey, and we'll get to this eventually later as well, Kyubey basically had sealed up Homura's soul gem so that Madoka could not reach it, basically using Homura as bait for Madoka, trying so Madoka could not save her. And then there was this barrier created as she was turning into a witch, because the idea was Madoka basically did this law of the cycle, and how it eventually worked was that your magical girls used up all of their energy against the wraiths, and then Madoka came, and instead of them becoming witches, Madoka kind of stopped that and instead just freed their soul. Basically, she was like, hey, I'm going to come and take you to this higher plane of existence with me. You're going to come to heaven with me, and you're not going to fight witches anymore, but you won't turn into one either. So we're all good. But the sacrifice of that to make this whole lovely thing possible was that Madoka sacrificed herself so that she herself would never have a childhood, never have an adulthood. She'd be forced to go throughout time and space, battling witches eternally until they were all gone. But that negative energy is still there. So it's still the same cycle. It's still an endless cycle. It's just Madoka's keeping the girls safe from despairing and turning into a monster. That's all that changed, was that she saved them from turning into witches, but there were still the wraiths, still the nightmares, still the negative energy that was all going to Kyubey. It was just, we made the comparison last week of instead of solar panels, it was windmills. Homura basically tells Kyubey in this movie, screw you, leave and let nature take its course. She's like, let us go back to the way things were. You don't get to suck energy out of this place anymore, right? So instead of this cycle now, what's ended up happening is that basically Homura has scared away Kyubey. We'll get to that. Has scared away Kyubey and made their kind stop the curses, and she's not involving humanity anymore. And she separated Madoka from her magical girl form that was the deity so that she could have a life, is essentially what has happened. So she basically took the magical girls out of the equation entirely. The cost of that is her becoming the demon. She was the sacrifice for that to happen. But she's like, my whole purpose in life is to save Madoka, and because I love her. So if this is the price I have to pay to let that happen, I'm gonna do it. And she says at the end, she's like, there may come a time where Madoka finds out what I've done, remembers, and fights me, but she's like, let it happen. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, so in the barrier, Madoka and Sayaka and Kyoko and all of them, they basically burst through this barrier to find Homura and explain to her and get her to realize that it was all a dream, that this was not real. I love that we redo the entire moment again from the beginning, except now Madoka is a little bit more like, she has more confidence in her. There's still all the damn chairs and all of the other things in the room, but it's so good. And then Kyubey's just hanging around. I love us going back and redoing the scene and talking about the teacher and everything. So then, yeah, the brother, like all the stuff from episode 1, that brother with the like tomato all around his face looking like blood and or lipstick still freaks me out. But And that clock is so bizarre. Also, the number 2 has 2 on it, like has a shadow as well. And then everything goes, there's like another song playing. And then we have, okay, so we have Madoka in this opening holding out her hand to Homura, and they reach for it, but then she becomes sand, and Homura looks down and sees the ring that's now the earpiece. It's now the earpiece hanging from her ear. So, and the lyrics say walking towards a new future. So she's accepted that this soul gem is now this like black, like earring thing around her ear. And that's going to basically, it's going to keep Madoka safe, but at the same time cost her soul. Oh my God. And then we see the ruins and everything. There's such an end of Evangelion vibe to this. It's absolutely insane. Like, the thing about it is, in End of Evangelion, there's not really a ship between Shinji and anybody, whereas here, it is distinctly Homura and Madoka. And Sayaka and Kyoko! They have a great ship! The show basically says, yeah, Hitomi's ending up with Kamijo. We all knew that was going to happen, but you all were really sad that, maybe like me, you didn't realize that Kyoko and Sayaka were a perfect ship until they died in episode 9. So here's your chance to see them interact. And then there was a confession. We'll get to that. There was a confession between the two of them. Oh my God. I'm like, yes. And now they get a chance to interact with each other and have their ship. Homura just is like being dark. She's basically being like the Antichrist in a way. I'm like, we have magical girl Jesus and magical girl Lucifer interacting with one another. I'm like, what? But yeah, I was so confused at first because I was like, is this an alternate timeline or not? And then the teacher's talking about like the apocalypse, like and this was made in 2013, so it's after the Mayan calendar and all of that. So, which if this is her dream version of the teacher, it makes sense why she's exaggerated in this moment. That all makes sense. And it also makes sense like when we do the creepy moment where you can't see their faces anymore. They're just all blank slates. That terrifying imagery now is all examined as well. And so also though, let me backtrack a little bit. The teacher was not Homura's memory. The teacher was actually there. She had burst through the barrier along with the parents and all that. There were select individuals that burst into the labyrinth and got within the barrier of Homura in all of this. I think it's so interesting that Homura views herself in her original form with the pigtails as she meets again with Madoka. And the transformation within this one movie of Homura from the beginning to the end, that transformation of her character and how she looks so tired and so done by the end of the film versus her being like, oh, little Homura at the beginning. So good. So good. But what's so good about this movie is that it literally is simultaneously fan service. Being like, we wanted to see the 5 girls and Homura, the 6 girls. We wanted to see them all battle Witch's face, all as a group together as one unit. We get to see that in this. We also get to see Madoka in action. We get to see Homura's witch form, which is insane. It's my favorite witch out of the whole series. Homura is my favorite character. Homura is. I mean, I like Madoka. Don't get me wrong. But is Madoka a Mary Sue? I don't think so. She has to go through a lot. And she has to make an ultimate sacrifice. And I think what keeps her from being that is when she finally confronts Homura and is like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was afraid when they were on the hill together and then you saw the spider lilies pop up, which now it makes more sense that it was Homura transitioning into a witch. But I was afraid that when Madoka's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a god. I don't like doing this. I don't get to see my family anymore. I've lost all of you all and I have to stand away from you and I can't be with you. When she was saying all that, my fear was that Homura was going to try to go back and change time. And she does end up changing time, but she moves forward and does it. So she doesn't delete anything that happened in the past necessarily, but she does rewrite history, but it doesn't change the fact that the witches are gone. which was my fear. I feared that that's what Kyubey, this little mother trucker, wanted. I thought at the beginning he wanted her to go back and make it to where Madoka never became a god and didn't stop the witches from existing. And that's kind of what he wanted, but that's not the way they ended up doing it. So I love this idea that we get to see them all in action. Homura is my favorite character, though. Like, the depth of her character, everything she went through to save the person that she loved, and then recognizing that that love was a curse for her, but she was willing to sacrifice her soul to save that woman she loved. Oh, and her witch form, everything. And then when she becomes the dark black angel, I'm like, all of my early 2000s angels and demons like motifs were just, it felt so nostalgic, and they were so satisfied in this. It was great. But yeah, and so I love all the structures. Not only do we get repeats of the structures that we've seen before in the series, which is nice nostalgia, but then if you look at like the place on the hill that they're watching, all of the little points of flowers are diamond shaped, like Homura's soul gem. It was there all along trying to tell us all of the zeppelins and everything, the stuff that looks kind of unnatural that you're like, oh, this is just the weird art of the world. No, this was all intentional. And the clovers and everything. And then Homura slowly realizing, and the fact that Kyubey didn't talk this whole time, when Kyubey wasn't talking at all at the beginning of this, that was the biggest red flag to me, because this little mother trucker likes to talk and likes to tell you how right he is. And so whenever he wasn't, I was like, well, something's off, because Kyubey says things. So is this an alternate timeline? What is this? And this was just a world where Homura could see them. And the insane thing was that as we see like the Zeppelin and everything go through, we'll get to Hitomi's thing, but as we see all of this, Kyubey was just going to wait it out. Kyubey was going to let Homura bask in this fake world until it finally came crashing down. What a monster. So I love the mouse calendar, the thing with the Hitomi and the nutcracker and the mouse, which is what it feels like. And I kind of like that we got to see Hitomi have some vulnerability for a hot second. Like, she got to like have her woes with her boyfriend. And I also don't know if like Homura seeing this was also reflecting on Homura having like woes with Madoka choosing to sacrifice herself to become a deity. But I loved all this stuff with Hitomi. I love seeing like her canopy bed and everything, the room, and seeing her be vulnerable and be kind of mad about Sayaka not realizing how much she wants to be with him and take their relationship to the next level. That all was great. And then, of course, in true Shaft fashion, we're like 16 minutes into this and the madness begins, and you're like, okay, the yarn, the thread, the idea of the spindle of thread that is Homura's like world collapsing, and the thread is pink to represent Madoka. All of it. Like I said, you could probably break down, I'm sure somebody has, broken down like every frame of this to point out all of the things happening. Also, I love Mommy with like her hair down and combing it. Although, is there really a point to her brushing her hair if she can snap her fingers and it instantly goes back into pigtails? What was the point? I do like the symmetry of a lot of the shots and landscapes in this series, in this movie. There's two chess pieces in her room, like pawns. Right, the two pawn pieces. Oh man, all building up to the chess set. And then BB was freaking me out up until she became like humanoid. I was like, what is the deal with BB? What is her purpose? And it was just her trying to like, BB and Sayaka came with Madoka to come help save Homura, and Mommy was there, and she latched onto Mommy because they had history, a lot of history. And I'm like, oh. So if this is a really vulgar thing to say, but it's on my mind, so I'm going to say it. Basically, BB went from biting off Mommy's head to potentially being involved with her head in a different way. And so she finally gets a ship. I wanted Mommy to have a ship, and she gets BB. They're cheese mates. It's super cute. Again, there's a lot of shot of Mommy's boobs in this movie, which is fine. So yeah, we get Hitomi's nightmare, which I guess is Hitomi if she'd been in witch form. It's very Nutcracker themed. Or is it part of Homura? Who knows? But yeah, then she becomes a magical girl and they go and fight the nightmare. Again, this is such fan service for if you wanted to see the 5 of them working together, then that'd be great. Also, though, I love the sequence of all their transformations. They're so good, involving like the soul gem and the witch together, which makes sense because it's in Homura's soul gem that's turning into a witch. So of course the memories are kind of tampered and altered. I think Kyoko's was my favorite. Her like bursting through, that part was so badass. Like, I loved the heavy metal themes. It was great. That part was awesome. And then Sayaka not having the music theme anymore, but I guess the double F's, is it a clef note that's in her hair? I guess that's still there kind of, but it's not like violin themed anymore. So then yeah, and then Homura turns into a magical girl, and then Madoka is there as well with the clovers, like on the hill with them. So yeah, we get to see our 6 battle it out against this nightmare, and just Shaft showing off over and over again, like how good they are at the animation in this. I would have loved to see this on the big screen. I would have loved to see this in the movie theater for a number of reasons. One, because the animation would have been amazing, and I would have just loved it to pieces. But also because if somebody came to this movie and had no clue what Magi Madoka is, they would have been so confused. I can't imagine showing up to this movie and not knowing what's going on. I would have been like, the fudge? You really have to see the series to appreciate this movie at all. I think you could watch clips of the battles and be like, oh, the animation's amazing with that. I love that. Especially like Homura and Mommy's fight. If you just watched it for the cinematography, oh yeah, absolutely. That would have been great. But it's kind of like End of Evangelion. If you didn't watch the series to begin with, you're gonna be lost as to what's going on. And you're probably gonna be lost while you're watching it, even if you did see the season. So it's just so good. The part though, again, should have been foreshadowing of Homura becoming a witch, was then they got Bibi to eat the nightmare, and they're all sitting around the table whose anchor looks like a soul gem. And they're all doing like the witch's seance, like having the little sing-song spell to get the nightmare eaten. Well, if Homura's turned into a witch, well, of course that there's some witch elements in all of this. That makes perfect sense. So it's just insane. And the balloons showing up here in this world and then showing up later when her and Kyoko are talking, it's like the memories all melting away. The whole thing with Sayaka and Hitomi's head. What? Look. Look. I'm going to probably be taking some random screenshots of this. Look. I'm not going to spoil Attack on Titan for you. But if you've seen Attack on Titan, the scene with Sayaka holding Mommy's head, I'm just saying, this came out in 2013. I feel Isayama was not completed with Attack on Titan by then. I feel Isayama was maybe possibly in the theaters watching this and was like, oh, got it. I know what to do now. I'm just saying. I think there was some influence. If not, it is a bold coincidence. But yeah, oh my God, the whole scene. Her holding Hitomi's dismembered head is on a bingo card that did not exist for me. In this series. No, absolutely not. And then it shows like all their soul gems. When it showed the nightmare disappearing and their soul gems were purified, I was like, well, where'd all the negative energy go? And that's the thing. It's all in Homura's dream. So it doesn't matter, right? But then things start to not add up as we see the people's faces. So I'm assuming the people who had the messed up faces were people that were not really there in that world. They hadn't snuck across the barrier. They were just the randos. But like Sayaka, Hitomi, and them who did show up, they actually were there. And then I love all of the different Japanese like anime lunches. The one with Kyubey and Madoka and the eggs that are the soul gems. Oh my god, that part. And occasionally you'd see like Kyubei's face, like his face just pop into existence, and you're like, oh yeah, this evil mother trucker's there, so something bad is going on. I love how you all still tried to convince me, even as I finished the series, that Kyubei wasn't, gaslighting extraordinaires, trying to convince me that this mother trucker wasn't evil. And then we find out what his plans were for Madoka at the end of this. How dare you? So yeah. So everything seems okay, hunky-dory, but Homura's like, wow, this is all really weird. What's going on? But because everything's going so well, we don't want to consider the idea that possibly part of this nightmare world exists. And then we have like the accordion come in, the scissors and everything, and the balloons, and we start to see like the little familiars all going around Homura. And then we see she's like, as Homura's starting to remember, there's the tree with the bells, and the bells are like, you know, to wake you up from your dream, right? And she starts to see those. And then the tables that mommy died on, she starts to see those, because she's like, I know that something's wrong. My memories are off, but I can't decide what it is. And she's like, what is happening? And I love that as this scene between Homura and Kyoko goes on, there's more and more cups on the table for no reason. But then again, it's a messed up witch world, so of course there's more cups as we go. And then we see like the ships and everything. It's just everything's messed up. So they take the bus to try to get out of the city and go back to Kyoko's hometown, and it doesn't end up working. It just ends up being this like loop-de-loop parallel. It was giving me vibes from Chainsaw Man. There's a scene where they're in one place and they try to go somewhere else and they end up back at the same place again. And I was like, oh. So it was very creepy. It's a long scene. I would say of all the scenes in this movie, the only one that feels stretched out is this scene where they're going back and forth in the town. And it gives kind of Spirited Away vibes, so I'm not bothered by it. But if there was any scene that made me look down at the clock and be like, oh, we're only 35 minutes into this movie, what's going on, it was this scene, because I feel like that scene was just a smidgen drawn out, but I get the reason for it, because we have to establish that something's going on, and plus the bus is going to come back later when Homura decides to test if the soul gem is really there by trying to get away from it. So I get it. I get what's going on. And then they end up in the same place over and over. And I love the tower, and the tower is just windows. A tower made out of windows, and we're talking about windows to the soul. So it's all going back to Homura's soul. Yes, please. It's just, everything about this is so well done. And just the artistry. Like, I love Salvador Dali's surrealism work, where it's like the melting clocks and the elephants on stilts and things that aren't real, but they're real things put into unreal scenarios. So like the glass floor with the windmills coming out and then the moon reflected on the glass, like all of that is so beautiful, and it's creepy and it's surreal, and it doesn't seem, it pushes the boundary of what we consider to be a reality. And so then we see like on the train station, there's like these little octopus or umbrella or something showing up, right? And then all of the people that had their faces jumbled now have their faces replaced with Homura and Kyoko faces, which again is the memories reacting to the labyrinth. And so then Kyoko's kind of left to figure out what's going on, and Homura's like, I'll go this way, and she figures out as she like ditches the braids. There were so many ribbons taken off in this movie, so many ribbons untied, as she realizes it's a witch's labyrinth. I'm like, yes. I love it. I love that shot of her walking on like what seems like the edge of the moon, and there's two surfaces there. Yes, absolutely. And then the mosaic tiles as she realizes that this is a witch's labyrinth, and she's like, but who is the witch? And she's like, all this ended when one girl sacrificed herself and broke the cycle of hope and despair. And with that, the world should have been led to a new world order. And she's like, but we forgot what happened. There's these false memories. What's going on? And I like that you had the two deer heads. One was blue and one was red. That's supposed to symbolize like Sayaka and Kyoko. And then, of course, I love that Homura, a lot of her motifs in this witch world are like chess, but they're also like royalty. There's like crowns and the diamonds and everything. It all visually connects in a really cool way once you realize what's going on. Also, something that should have also been apparent is that Mommy's apartment and home is not the way it was in prior memories. And I thought that was maybe just a parallel universe, but no. And so, yeah, BB being involved there should have been a sign as well. There's also like some vinyls on the back there on the shelf. I can't see them all. And then Kyubey is conveniently out of frame because he doesn't want to get found out, but he also wants to monitor and make sure that Homura doesn't do anything drastic. And he wants to be there to catch Madoka when she figures everything out, right? I also like that the BB, like all of these photos that have been like falsely created of the two of them together. I'm like, what the fudge? Yeah. But the tension between Homura and Mommy and BB was so well done, where she freezes time and grabs BB and takes her. Oh my God, that whole scene. Yes, that was so good. Every time she held her and she got unfrozen. Oh, so good. And then, of course, BB's like, doesn't understand what's going on because BB was one that was sent in with Madoka to rescue Homura. So she's not actually at fault, but Homura's trying to narrow down who it is. And she's like, well, first of all, BB, you weren't in episode 12, so you shouldn't be here. So you're my first victim to narrow out. Then she gets back to Mommy, and I love that they do the introspective with Mommy's personality. We've talked about it in the discussions for the last several episodes, especially episode 10, where we see Mommy in the timeline where she kills all of them and herself. I feel like seeing Mommy as someone that gets in too deep too quickly and has an emotional response too easily, we see that in this movie and why Homura is kind of hesitant around her. But it makes sense. First one to question is BB, then Mommy, then Sayaka, and then we go from there. And by that point, Kyubey lets the baby out with the bathwater. But yeah, we go back to the world that BB made as the sweet switch. And she's like, you don't know how many hearts I've trampled on to get to this place. And BB's like, I don't know, don't blame me for that. And she's like, what are you trying to do? And that's when Mommy and her start fighting. The battle between Homura and Mommy, oh my God. Like, just everything about that. And so, okay, so you see the falling teeth coming out. Like, the whole motif with the falling teeth coming out is like, when you have old teeth come out, new ones come in. So you could maybe look at that as being like Homura is, letting Madoka's old new order go out and hers come in, and she's ushering in a new world order. So a new set of teeth that will like take a bite into Kyubey and his system. You could interpret it as that. You could interpret it as, in a lot of nightmares, people lose their teeth. I lose teeth in a lot of my nightmares, and it freaks me out. I have very sensitive teeth, so I'm always scared of them like falling out or something. It's like, it's a fear, and I have nightmares about it all the time. So seeing the teeth fall out in this, I was like, I know what that's like. But it also could be a sign of like, death. She's dying in the witch world. She's losing parts of herself. The teeth are coming out. I like this to think of it as Madoka's set of baby teeth are coming out and the new ones are coming in to keep a grip on Kyubey. I think that's because then we see we can't tell that they're her, but they're different versions of herself walking with the banners. Oh my gosh, it's all foreshadowing that world. So then Homura tries to tell her about, what's happening with BB, and Mommy realizes that something's wrong with her, and then we have the battle between them as she sends BB away. I freaking, like, there's so many shots that I'm going to have to go back and take screenshots of, so we'll cross those bridges when we get to them. But so many hair flips, too. So many hair flips. And so then Homura says, do you mean to protect BB no matter what? Which is pot calling the kettle black, because Mommy protecting BB is no different than Homura protecting Madoka. I freaking love it. And the two of them just battling it out, like just guns a-blazing. The choreography of this entire fight, I don't know what else to tell you all except that it was incredible. And just every part about it, I think my jaw was on the floor because I was just amazed at the trajectory using the time manipulation to stop the bullets and then all the weaponry that they had. It was so good. Them falling into the pit, everything. And then after all the bullets had gone by, in that moment, she's like, we're at a standstill. And so she makes the goal of shooting herself to say, like, she makes the goal of shooting herself. And it's like, oh shit, what do we do with that? Right? What do we do at that moment? So I want to get back to that moment. Yeah. And I want to go back to that and see exactly what happened. So they're at a standstill. And what does she end up doing? I want to go back to this. She is going to like shoot herself because like if this is a dream, she's like, I want to know, are you trying to hurt me? Are you really my enemy? Or is there a reason you're keeping me alive? What is happening? And Mommy's whole goal is to protect her. And so I'm like, oh my God. I thought for a second she was really going to like shoot herself. And so Mommy tries to stop her. But like she ends up shooting like through part of her face. Oh my God. She just misses her head and shoots part of her face. When she looks up and you see like her eye and like half her face shot off. Oh my God. It's ridiculous. And then she freezes time as Mommy reaches for her. Oh my God. Like that whole part. Yeah, I thought for a second she shot her eye out and that's why I had such a reaction. I was like, oh my God. But no, she just happened to shoot like part of her forehead. Oh my God. Insane. And she thought about shooting Mommy. I'm glad she didn't. But instead, she shoots the leg and doesn't hurt her. But Mommy reveals it was a copy. Mommy's a pretty formidable magical girl. If she'd had more time, she could have been a lot of help in that first season if BB hadn't eaten her. Again, I also like the idea that the red ribbon of fate that's locking her up, it's in the form of like an X, which is a sideways cross. And oh my God. And all of the ruins look like crosses too. And they also Neon Genesis Evangelion reference right there in front of us. And then Sayaka ends up saving her. Which is, because at first you see this witch's labyrinth with the teeth and everything forming. And there's, again, that like walnut, which is like eyelashes coming from it. Like, what the fudge? And then Sayaka ends up saving her. Because you can see the cape in that moment. So then, yeah, BB's there. She's like, I need you to calm down and listen. BB's like, hey, I was actually, my spirit went up to be with Madoka, and now we're here to save Homura, and I gotta talk to you now. I was like, what was happening? And this movie does such a good job of making you question what's going on until the big reveal, right? I really love that Sayaka gets to face Homura here. But the crazy thing is Sayaka facing Homura in this moment, like her using the sword to stop the gears of her like time manipulation. And if you're a Sayaka fan, it's really cool in this moment because up until now, my biggest issue with Sayaka is all the self-doubt that she had and how she was like self-sabotaging herself throughout the original series. And here in this moment with Homura, she doesn't have self-doubt. She doesn't have any fears. Bitch is already dead. What she got to worry about. And so we get to see in action a confident, heroic, fearless Sayaka. And if you're a fan of her character, you're probably like over the moon. Because it's like, this is your chance to finally see the potential that her character had and how effective she is against Homura. And it's so good. So they question, they're like, what are you going to do with her when you find the witch who created the labyrinth? What are you going to do with her? And at first I thought it was maybe Sayaka, but the moment she said that, I was like, is Homura the witch? And that's what ends up being. She's like, we don't have to fight anyone. We can live and work together. And she's like, I can't help but sympathize with the witches, which is going to be a really important thing later when Homura is the witch and Sayaka's the one sympathizing with her. Yeah. Oh, it's so good, right? It's so good. And then Homura's like, we're supposed to be fighting wraiths, not witches. Nobody knows about them. Witches no longer exist. That was the new world order she created and sacrificed herself in the process. And she's like, I should be the only one who remembers Madoka, but you and Bibi do too. Is someone who remembers the existence of witches. So are you really Sayaka? And I like that Sayaka's like, yeah, I am. I was the witch that was purified. That's right. She's like, would you be okay destroying this city? Think long and hard before you decide so you don't have any regrets. And then we see the pink spindle of thread in Homura's world with all these little familiars, right? And then the cinema. Do you enjoy the movie? I love that we had the cinema opening at the beginning, and now it's almost like at this point you're halfway through the movie. You're an hour in. And I was like, okay, we're an hour in, and we kind of have figured out what's going on, but not quite. And so it's almost like the movie is having a meta moment to be like, are you enjoying what's happening so far? Is this good for you? And we see all the paper versions of her friends as she goes through saying, is this world really so bad? And they're like, the price we paid for our miracles was everything that's happening. And you can see Madoka in all the windows. And all of the people, all of the witch familiars are eating the pomegranate, right? Which is like, the pomegranate is tied to, isn't it tied to Persephone and Hades? Isn't the pomegranate tied to Hades, which is hell, which is the demon, where the demons are? Oh my God! And then you have, from the beginning, the idea of the witch touching the soul gem, which is connected to Homura. I hope that somebody in the Discord gives links to all of, if you have any like rune lore to pass over, because there's Madoka coming through the window to touch and take Homura away. And then she's like, it's because our fate is what it is, that she gave up everything to save us. And that motif of her clawing her arms down the legs of Madoka, who's like in the T-pose. Oh. And her being like, she's like, I hate that Madoka sacrificed everything for us. She didn't deserve that fate. And she gave it all for us. She's like, I hate that. And then like the ship on fire, she's like, this ridiculous farce is wasting the sacrifice Madoka made for us. Oh. And then, yeah, they're all throwing the pomegranates at her and her vision of Madoka. And then the pomegranates become like blood splatters. It's like, it's just art. It's pure art at this point. And then Madoka comes to see her. And of course, Kyubei's there. Kyubei is banking on Madoka and Homura figuring out each other's situation. Kyubei is banking on that so that he can get Madoka to remember her god powers and show up so he can evaluate it. Because at this point, Kyubei, as far as that all ended, Kyubei's mind has been altered to where he can't remember the witches, so he has no concept of Madoka as a god. He has no concept of the law of cycles. And here's the thing, you would think Kyubei is an alien. His species are an alien. They're not trapped by the limitations of humanity. So he's saying, well, we have no way of conceptualizing Madoka because we don't remember her. We don't remember her as a god. We don't know how this law of cycles works. We have no way of conceptualizing it. But if we conceptualize it and we're able to understand it, then we can find a way to control it. And I'm like, why can't you let sleeping dogs lie? Why can't you leave things the way you were, you foul beast? And it's so dastardly. Because Homura and Madoka have this beautiful moment on the hill, again, back at that hill, where she's like, it's much better than having to worry about everything on your own. It hurts me to see you suffering and not being able to do anything. And Homura is so, like, distraught. And then, of course, we see the two of them on either side of the divide. Of course we do. Of course we do. I had a scary dream that you'd gone to a place so far away I could never see you again. And everyone else in the world forgot about you. And that's another thing. And we see the grief seed of the Zeppelin, that's Homura's. And it's like the salamander, like the little symbol there that's now her earpiece, is on the Zeppelin. That's attached to it. The number 6, you know? But the thing about it is, another thing Homura hated was that Madoka had become a god and no one could remember her. She's like, you're such an amazing person. Everyone should remember you and all the things you've done, but yet they're forced to forget about you. And that's not fair. It's kind of like a reverse Unico in a weird way. Like in the series Unico does all these great deeds, but he forgets about them, but they don't forget about Unico. And here it's like the opposite. Like she does all of these deeds and takes on all this burden, and nobody remembers her to give her credit. And Homura's like, I hate that. I hate that for you. She's like, I was the only one who could remember you in the whole world. And I love the transition of the flowers as she collapses. She's like, I was so lonely and sad, but no one could understand how I felt. And so, yeah, it's like kind of the bittersweet ending of episode 12 is like, if we didn't have this movie, you'd be like, well, is Homura, Homura puts on a tough face at the end of episode 12 and is like, yeah, I'm going to go fight these monsters and fight these wraiths, and that's going to be that. But at the end of the day, she's like, I'm actually kind of miserable because I don't get to talk. I can't talk to anybody about my problems, and I can't, you're gone and I can't see you. And so, part of her reconstruction of the world is kind of selfish, because she's basically saying, like, I want to be able to see you and watch you as you go through life, and this is my way to do that. And so it is selfish, but that's why she's a demon. And I'm like, she makes the choice, the selfish decision, because she can't stand to be alone and not have Madoka in her life. She's like, surrounded by that, I started to think my memories were just things I'd made up. Yeah, she started to go crazy because she thought that nobody else could connect to Madoka around her. And I began to doubt myself. And this scene, honestly, this scene here between her and Madoka is, in hindsight, so beautiful, because she just bears like how sad she is and lonely. And we get to see like Madoka's little gem on her nail. She's like, that does sound like a terrible dream. And then she says here, she's like, but it's okay now, because I'm not going to go away to a place like that, not on my own. And the thing is, she seems like, my only thing with the whole situation was that she was going to take Homura with her at the end of it. She was going to take Homura back to the heaven. But the problem was, and because at first I was like, Homura, why didn't you just let her take you to heaven with her, and then you guys could have been together forever? But if that had happened, Kyubey would have been able to control them. That would have been a short-lived dream between the two of them, because sure, Madoka would have been able to save her and they could have been together, but for how long before this mother trucker ruined it? Because he would have tried to find a way to control Madoka and Homura and the power that she had, and reversed everything that she did to bring the witches back. This mother trucker is the reason we can't have nice things. He's the reason they can't be together forever in heaven. Thank you, Kyubey. She's like, I would never go to a place like that, not on my own. And then she's like, well, how can you be so sure? And, like, the animation between them. And I love this field of flowers and all of it. Oh. And she gives her the big hug. Oh. She says, you know how weak I am. And because I could never bear to do something that could make someone as strong as you cry like this. And at first I was like, but Madoka, you put on a strong face and you were so, like, brave and everything. But the reality is she was just putting it on because she didn't want to see Homura suffer. And Homura's like, well, that would mean it would hurt too much for you to bear. And Madoka's like, well, that's right. You and Sayaka-chan, Mami-san and Kyoko. And as she starts to braid her hair back, and Mom and Dad and Tatsuya, even Hitomi-chan, everyone in our class. I love this moment where she starts to braid it back. She's like, I would never want to go somewhere where I'd never see them again. And for a second, I thought that things were, like, going to regress in a negative way. But the fact is that just like Homura bared her soul to Madoka and said how miserable she was, knowing that Madoka sacrificed herself, Madoka admits that, yeah, I kind of hate it, but I had to do it to save you because I loved you. She's like, even if there were no other choice, I know I'd never have the courage to do that. And I think at that moment, Homura's like, You literally did all of this for me, and I still ended up making you miserable. Oh. And she's like, you're right. Yep, she's like, those are your honest feelings. And then the flowers change. She's like, how could I have made such a stupid mistake? She's like, I let you become this god because I thought it would save you. But again, and I now looking back on the episode, now looking back on the wish, it's like both of them realize this was a bad decision, but it was all that could happen at the time. Oh. She's like, I shouldn't have allowed that to happen. And that's when Homura decides to take it on for herself and be like, okay, no matter what it took, I should have stopped you back then so that you didn't have to suffer. Oh. And then her hugging her back. And she's like, Madoka. And I love that Madoka tries to like braid her hair back, but then she's like, no. She's like, no, I've made up my mind. She's like, you should know that you do have the courage to make hard decisions. And she did, yes. And then as the flowers die, she's like, even when you know how much they'll hurt you, when you learn there is something that only you can do. And then I love that it's like the daisies like melt away, become the balls of light, and get replaced with the spider lilies. Oh, it's so freaking good. You can be far kinder and stronger than you'd ever imagine. And it's like all of the dandelions, all of the witches blowing up to the surface again. I know firsthand. Oh. And, oh, it's so freaking good. She's like, you probably don't remember anything either, Madoka. Yeah, she doesn't remember becoming a god. And then, yeah, the hair comes undone. You might just be an illusion. Or a false copy created by someone. But after all, how else could we meet again like this? I love that her hair, she's like, but it's not possible any way I look at it. But I know this is you. But I can tell you're the real Madoka. Oh my god. And then she's like, being able to talk to you like this and feel your kindness one more time makes me so happy. You've blessed me more than I could ever hope for. And there's something I need to do. Yeah, and in that moment, Homura's like, this is what I have to do to save you. I figured it out. I should have done it before. I shouldn't have let you go through this decision the first time, but now I figured it out. And so, yeah, then we have, what we got here? Was it blood on her hands? No, it's a Dance Revolution. The dog drag reinforcement. And it's all like images of Madoka and everything, which it makes sense now why Homura's world were all surrounded by images of Madoka. It all makes sense now, right? And she's like, you shouldn't know her. These are false memories. If I'd stopped and thought about it, it would have been obvious. And then we see the white feather in the glass case like Snow White. Oh my god, with the metronome over it. Oh, and it's like the angel feathers becoming a demon's wing. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yep. And the metronome. For someone to fabricate a world where Madoka exists, they would have to know her perfectly. And then we see all the feathers in the box and her like letting them out. Ah, the symbolism, y'all, next to all the flower petals and the blood on the doily. It's just so good. It's so good. The symbolism's amazing. I love it. And then all the different versions of Madoka there. I love the cow print one. I'm going to save a picture of that. Insane. Yep. And it says, oh. And he's like, there's only one person that could lock us. I know who rewrote our memories and locked us in this false city. And then we start to see like everything starts to go haywire. And we see like the Zeppelin and everything crashing down. And she leaves the Soul Gym to test out her theory. And then when she drops the phone, oh my god, in the moonlight. I'm like, girl, I'm going to take so many screenshots of this when it's over. Yes. And then she goes back. She's like, I'm not even a magical girl anymore. And she shoots the Soul Gym. And she's like, how? How did this happen? And then all the spider lilies crop up. How did I become a witch? Yes. Oh my god. And the hands dripping down And it's like the Colosseum and the thread, and they're kicking the thread like kick the can. And then Kyubey's like, oh, well, now I've shown up in my hour to reveal myself as the true villain of this damn series, the true mastermind. And we've talked about this in the comments, but Kyubey is such a perfect villain because he's unsuspecting. You think, oh, he's so cute. He's unsuspecting. He's kind of like, he's the worst kind of villain. The motivation that he has is that of like a corporate company. It's like soulless. He's just like, oh, we need energy and this is the best way to do it. It's like, and I feel like even though this was made 10 years ago, with all the stuff going on like right now with Google and like Elon Musk and like there's like deep sea mining and things happening that's literally destroying the world, and it's all done by these companies that just aren't taking account anything involving humanity. It's like it all feels very relevant. Like they would have Kyubey as a spokesperson for sure. Kyubey is such a good villain because he doesn't really have any like malice behind what he's doing. He's deceptive, he's manipulative, he's a little bastard, but it's all just for the sake of something as mundane as energy collection. But he goes a step too far in this movie, right? Because before it was just, oh, we're just collecting energy. It's just, like, well, sorry, humanity, we're on a quota. But you had, like, the thing is, Kyubey got greedy. He flew too close to the sun in this movie because he had a way of getting it, the energy, and that wasn't good enough. Instead, he wanted to take control of Madoka and get the witches back. I love the Buckingham Palace guards. They're all Homura. It's like Nutcracker style. There's the castle. It's like a little drawer. And she's wrapped up in the shards and there's all the different things. And he's like, oh, Homura. And I love that she, like, has the black dress motif. Oh, my God. She's like, this is all you're doing, wasn't it? Oh, God, it's so good. When the cape flies off and she's in the all black. Oh, my God. Yep. And then he's like, oh, I can provide these answers for you. And then he basically explains that this is the outside of the false city. And we see her with the bow, right? And there's all of these weird surveillance monitors that are Kyubey's eyes. I love the shot where he had Madoka and Homura's bow and arrows next to one another. Those were beautiful. I love that. But he's like, this is the real you in the outside world. And Homura's like, what the fudge? And then we see him like she's on this dais. And then we see the soul gem is trapped in this barrier. And there's like a weird ass like seahorse that it's like trapped within. And I don't know why it's a seahorse. Whenever I think of seahorses, I think of the fact that male seahorses are able to reproduce. And I'm like, what is this saying? What does this mean? Why is it a weird seahorse that has a humanoid face? Who knows? Shaft just felt like drawing it. It's a sea theme. And they're like, the isolation field we invented is enveloping your soul gem. So we wanted to take a soul gem that was pushed to its limit, which was hers, and place it in an environment that was isolated from external influence, which would be Madoka. And so then they're like, yeah, and see what would happen. So they had all this surveillance going on. And then from there, she's like, an experiment. And they're like, yes, to study this mysterious power that cleanses magical girls and makes them disappear, which is essentially Madoka coming down and saving them. And they're like, we wanted to know what happened to Soul Gem when it was cut off from that phenomenon. And if it would come, like, and then it shows it like in the Holy Grail. And we're doing this with the law of the cycle. You showed us some very interesting results. This formation of a closed space through unusual means, which is the labyrinth. The formation, it means that victims are collected and imprisoned. And then he's just stretching as he's explaining this. He's like, yeah, we did some work. Figured out what the labyrinths were like. Figured out that all of this despair basically could make a labyrinth show up and then trapped inside of it. I love Homura's dress and the bottom of it being translucent. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. And then the flowers and everything and the bed frame. And he's like, isn't this the power of these witches you explained to us once before? I love that there's just like all the soldiers that are her shaped and the scissors and everything with her. And then like the disco balls and everything. And then, yeah, we see all the familiars. Oh, and oh, I love her clenching her fist being like, son of a bitch, what are you trying to do? And then, but since your soul gem is preserved by the isolation field and remains intact, then you've not yet completed your transformation into a witch. But you're like a chick that, unable to break the shell of the egg, grew up within it. Oh my God, just like the setup of all this is incredible. He's like, but this place is the world inside of your soul gem, see? And then Kyubei's just like, yeah, you know, like a witch's labyrinth. And then the fact of its eyes like turning red as the Zeppelin goes flaming down into the ground. What the fudge? And she's like, something's off about your theory. It should be impossible for people to wander into the labyrinth. And he's like, oh yeah. And there's like all these Kyubeis on all of these like little swans. And he's like, yeah, we made this adjustment so that we could let some people into the field that we wanted to. Like some people that you knew, some people that could possibly be connected to the law of the cycle. And that way they could enter and, you know, they'd be, you know, they'd come in and then we'd be able to see the unknown. And like her hair gets longer and longer as she starts to figure it out. He's like, there's this unknown karmic force that makes magical girls vanish, and we don't know what that is. But there are several characters within the realm that should not exist, so it's probably one of them. And yet they participate in some strange way. And the most interesting of these is a certain girl who's not recorded in any past memory and doesn't have a future either. And it's like, at that point, we see her soul gem gone on the outside, and her bow is there. But, oh, they're like, we figured out it's Madoka, and the flowers are all dying around her, and then there's the red ribbon, though. And her bow is like Madoka's. It has the purple flower on it. For hers has the pink flower. She's like, yeah, she shouldn't exist. So she's like, even though she doesn't exist within the cycles of our universe, it seems there was actually never any need for us to go searching. You saved us that trouble, Homura. You've referred to the law of the cycle by the name of Madoka. Is it really her? And they're like, the one disappointment was Madoka never displayed any sign of unusual powers because she went in the barrier and then forgot that she was a god. So like, as a result, we lost track of her true identity and power. So then he says, she forgot she was a god, and Homura forgot she was a witch. And thanks to that, we ended up coming along on this grand, pointless escapade. Basically saying, like, the last part of the movie you've been watching was all just fluff to get to the heart of it right here. But it was very beautiful fluff. We had intended to wait patiently and observe. And then we see, like, the person leading them along is Homura, like, in the nightmare form with the head and everything. But since you went and discovered the truth, you saved us the trouble. The delicate balance of this world has begun to crumble. And he's like, now then, reach out to Madoka for help. And this was the part I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this. He's like, that'll make her remember who she really is and what she came here to do. And Homura, like, the glass is breaking and she's just like, she's realized what's going on. Oh my God. And yeah, incubator, what is your true objective? And it's like Homura knows. And what's fascinating about it is Homura had the heart condition. She was in the hospital. The bed frame and the IV bags are there. It's like going back to the root of all this, where it all started, right? And she's like, what's your objective? And he's like, well, we need to confirm the existence of the law of cycle. And there's like the lamps, the chairs are everywhere. He's like, yeah, we've got to confirm this, and it's just been a hypothesis, so our crew needs to figure out what's going on. I like that as the spears are hitting the ground, the soul gem is cracking. He said, well, you said yourself that acting out of curiosity is illogical. What's the point? It's like, you didn't just do this out of curiosity to confirm that she exists. What's happening? And Kyubei, who, Kyubei doesn't really lie. He's pretty straightforward with all of this. Says exactly like the last words he'd ever have to say. Because she's like, oh my God, when she freaks out and she's like, what are you planning on doing? I love the pink and the purple, the triangle, the headless witch. It's all being set up. You're intend to use Madoka to your advantage. And the way that they drew her mouth, like snarling that, oh my God. It felt like something off Jujutsu Kaisen. I was like, oh my God, you're going to try to use her to your advantage. And that's when she breaks out and starts to turn into a witch. Mm-hmm. And Kyubei's like, well, I'm not going to deny that that was the end goal we had in mind. He's like, though it would have been a long and difficult endeavor. I love that he's just trying to run around as she's killing all the versions of him. This phenomenon has always been a complete mystery to us. They just flew too close to the sun. We can't interfere with something that we can't confirm it exists. I'm like, so your intent was to interfere all along. He's like, but I'm sure that that would be enough to stop you. He's like, once we observe the phenomenon, we would be able to interfere with it. And once we can interfere with it, we're going to be able to control it. And with enough research, we'll one day have full control over the law of the cycle. So basically, they're just going to go back to making witches. Yeah. And then they're going to control Madoka, and then we can have magical girls turn into witches. And he's like scratching his ears. He's like, that's our goal. I'm like, you had in episode 12, Kyubey. You had a way to get the energy. It was going to take you a lot longer, but you had the means. You could have just stopped there, and that'd have been it. But no, he was like, we really want those witches. That's the best option for us. And the worst part is, like, at that point, that sealed Homura deciding to become a demon. Because she's like, if I don't, you are never going to stop until you try to control Madoka and make her life hell. You're never going to stop. The phase change between hope and despair is key. And it's far beyond anything we imagined. Truly, magical girls hold the key to limitless possibilities. They're like, so we have to do this. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And I love that she has, like, the pins and everything. You all should fulfill your purpose by transforming into witches. I'm like, at this point, Kyubei's like, well, all you're good for is being energy for us, so why don't you just go ahead and accept your fate? And Homura says, screw you, and no, I'm not going to do that. Oh my God. And just the look on her face, it's like a look full of, she looks like a demon then, like full of judgment. I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, and he's like, why are you angry? Why are you mad, bro? It's nothing to do with you anymore. They're like, it has no longer anything to do with you. Oh my God, as the world crumbles, your existence as Homura has reached its end. And it's so soulless. Kyubei's like, well, you're done. You're going to be a witch now. So, the end of the long, arduous path carved by your own fate, you fulfilled your promise to meet the one who you've waited for all this time. I don't know why you're bitching. Oh, and she's like, that's not the joy that I wished for. Oh, and it's like, you're raising a curse yourself. What are you thinking? If you do, you won't be purified in time. And she's like, fine, I won't be purified. I'll die, and that'll be the end of it, and you won't be able to get to Madoka. She's like, I became a magical girl to save Madoka. And that holds true even now. I love it. If the alternate is revealing her secret to you, I'd rather become a witch. Oh, I would never let you touch her again. I'm like, it's like the most romantic thing anyone can do, being like, I would sell myself to hell to keep you from hurting her. Oh. And it's like, oh, then you're just going to spend the rest of eternity as a curse? And she's like, yep, that's pretty much it. And the idea of the guillotine, oh. And Kyubei can't comprehend it. He doesn't understand. He's like, well, why would you do that? And it's because of love. You'll be destroyed. And you'll lose your chance to see her forever. And then when she becomes this giant entity as the witch and tells him to shut up, oh my God, terrifying. Oh, and the skull becoming the witch. Oh, and the eyeballs popping out. Oh my god. And then yeah, Kyubey just getting speared by the scythes over and over again. I would say Kyubey deserved its fate at this point. Because they just like keep clocking him all over again. And Kyubey just can't understand why somebody would do something like that. Why would that happen? Why is human thought so incomprehensibly illogical? And then yeah, for a hot second, she's like back on the chair with Madoka. And Madoka doing the T-pose, like sacrificing herself. I love that they're the two chairs side by side. Like the angel and the demon. And it's kind of like the last measure of saying, is Homura gonna do this? And then she falls over and collapses. And at that point, that's the end. She's like, nope, I don't want that to happen. It's just like, oh, it's so crazy. She's like, this is what it means to be a witch. In that moment when she's like, she's like, this is what it means to be a witch, to know the despair of losing someone and never being able to have it. Like, oh, the design of her as a witch, oh my god, it is so freaking badass and cool. The skeleton with like the death mask and the witch's hat. And then her on top of the table. My emotions have all come back to haunt me. I love the doily sleeves, everything. And then in that moment, she talks about how like she just basically like the guillotine like slices her in half. Oh my god, like the sands of time all collapse in that moment. And she rises up, it's like end of Evangelion, right? Just rises up. I can't remember anything except glimmers of light and regret. And then as she like comes out of the building, she's like, this is my... And then, yep, the witch's head falls off and like the spider lily, this is my despair. Is Madoka locked away in the house. In the dollhouse where she can't be touched. Oh my god, it's so crazy. Oh, and the witch's hat is a record. That explains the record player on the back of her dress. That explains the witch's hat as a needle, and it's just a record because it's like the time travel and it going over and over again. Oh, that's so crazy. And then, yeah, she has the megaphone coming out the back, and then she's like shackled. Oh my god. And she's like, thank you for coming all the way to a place like this. Oh my god, yeah. And then she's shackled and there's like the skeleton. Oh my god. That's insane. I couldn't even say goodbye to you in the end. And it's like the salamander of her. Oh my god. And then Madoka's like around all the clocks and everything. And then Kyoko around like the headless version of her. Oh my god. And then the rainbow, like the infinite rainbow, and it's all like distorted. Oh my gosh, and the toothless. I can't wait to find out what all this means. Like the birds and everything. Oh. And the army. Oh my god. It's like insane, the version of her that like the skull, everything, all of like her design is just, it's an eyegasm. I can go on forever about it. Oh, but yeah, so then like, and the ribbons are hands, and so then they all get together, and they're all like, well, time to kill, might as well destroy this witch, right? But Kyubey is afraid they're gonna destroy Homura without revealing Madoka's powers, right? They're like, you know, she's suffering really hard, so we just gotta, she's suffering the most, so despite her appearance. I like that Sayaka, who was once a witch herself, understands Homura's struggles, and she's like, yep, I know what that feels like, but we've got to set her free. And meanwhile, Kyubey backtracks so hard, and he's like, oh no, wait a minute, we can't be destroying her now. And I like Kyogo's like, oh, you can talk now? I thought that wasn't a thing. I love that BB becomes, I like BB becomes like a mortal in this moment. Like there's like a recipe and a process where she like gets mixed up in a blender and poured into a mold, and then she shows up. It's like, what? Insane. And she has like her little bugle of bubbles. Again, the idea of the rainbow and the guillotine, and it's like she's being led to the guillotine as a skeleton. Oh my god. Like, the art and design in this is insanity. I love it so much. Like, all of this is absolutely gorgeous. I have no complaints. Yeah, and so she sends, like, all of her people out there, but we see, like, the chicken and all of the food from the earlier dinner scene is all distorted now and has forks and stuff sticking through it. It's, oh my god. It's so crazy. And then I like seeing Sayaka, like, in this moment, we're gonna take you outside. And then she, like, just, like, stabs a sword in herself to release the witch. And Kyubei's like, what are you? And she's like, oh, we were once bringers of hope who despaired and spread our curses. We were once witches, but now we're guided by the law of the cycle. So I like the idea that Bebe and Sayaka are able to use their witch powers because they were once witches, but now since Madoka freed them, they can use their powers. And they're trying to use it so that Madoka doesn't use hers. But even them using their powers, you know, Kyubei's taking track of all that. I do like the Picasso drawing is shown in this portion here. And they make this big symphony. We would use a plan that would allow us to move freely under your nose. And you were so focused on Madoka, you failed to notice us. And then Kyubei's like, well, is this the law of the cycle? And they're like, we're kind of her personal assistants. So then we see, like, the versions of Homura that are on the ground, like, praying. Someone had to hold all her memories and powers until it was time to give them back to her. But this isn't what Homura wanted. They didn't want them to give their powers back to Madoka. And there's, like, now all these cotton balls fighting all of Homura. But they're just trying to save her in this moment. Ugh. So, yeah. And then there's, like, the other half of these bodies, like, fighting. Oh, my God. Like I said, you're saying that was reality. Oh, my God. And the metronome, everything. And this right here, we're fighting side by side. And then there's, like, teeth shooting, like, nutcrackers. I like the nutcracker theme to go along with it. That part's really good. I'm also finishing up Psychopaths, so seeing the nutcracker theme come out in this is also weird. And then, yeah, the walnuts being thrown in the dream. Then we have the Kyoko and Sayaka portion of this, where we basically have a confession between the two of them, which is amazing. This isn't just a dream, it's brighter than that. Oh, so the little fluff balls with the mustaches, those were in the end of episode 12 when Madoka was like, I'm sacrificing myself to save you all. She, like, patted the head that was Homura, and it was the mustache, like, cotton ball. That was in episode 12. Okay. So I did like the message where Sayaka was like, yeah, we died, but this is our ghost coming back to basically help you. So it's not a bad thing. It's brighter than that. And then they hold hands, and I'm like, you just, movie. You confirmed all the things. I took this assignment to come back. And I like that we see, like, the sun and the cat with the bell on its tail was because I did have one regret. And the fact that I left you behind. And I was like, oh my God, it's so official. The ship is so real. I was like, yes, please. And then, of course, Mommy and them come out and basically they have to fight Homer even more. Together this time, though. But all the gears of time, everything. It's just, it's so dense. There is so much happening in every frame of this movie. You could take 1,000 screenshots of it and here's where we would be. Oh my God. And yeah, Mommy going through it and getting to use, like, the train with the dessert cannon on it. I love the train with the teacup and the knight and the dessert cannon. There's, like, a reindeer that's at the front of the train and it's kind of combining. There's cheese in the pie, so it combines BB with it. It's so clever and it's so fun. Yes. And then Madoka comes up there to save Homura. And Homura's like, stop, Madoka. I like that she's kind of in this weird, like, form where she's like, no, don't use your magic. Because at that point, Kyubei's going to use you. Oh, I like that BB has this weird, like, she becomes like the witch for a hot second. It's so bizarre. But yeah, Madoka ends up saying, and yeah, there's a weird ass shot of, like, all the Kyubeis looking in to observe what's happening. That shit is so messed up. She's like, I see the incubator seal. And she's like, if we can break that, you'll be free, Homura. You'll be able to reach the outside world and see the real Madoka again. And Homura, she sees that window where it's raining, and she goes back to that time where she was about to turn into a witch. And in that moment, like, there was like the moment where she was about to turn into a witch, and then Madoka saved her, and then she was holding Madoka. Yep, and she's about to shoot her. And then it shows her about to shoot herself. Oh my god. And that's when Madoka's like, no, that's no good. Don't kill yourself, Homura. She's like, don't do that. I told you shouldn't go off by yourself. And just seeing the eye and seeing her look up, no matter what happens, I'll always be with you, Homura. And like the fact that she has all of the cuts on her arm saying, I would never abandon you. And Homura's like, I don't want you to get hurt. And then she says, so don't give up. Oh my god. It's just so good. I don't know what to tell y'all. And she can't shoot it. And then we see like all the eyes watching her in the witch form. Oh. And she says, I'm sorry. I'm so spineless. I wanted to see you one more time. Oh. And if I had to go so far as to betray that wish. I love the lilies, everything. This motif, it's so damn good. I knew I could shoulder any sin. Oh, no matter what I became, I knew I would be fine with it. And then she breaks out of that witch form. Oh, as long as I could have you by my side. And so then the two of them end up beating that form together. Oh, like just everything about the bows, the flowers, all of it. I'm sorry. This is just absolutely freaking amazing. And then they have this form together where it's the wings coming off of that form and the petals, the cherry blossoms, all of this. Like it's just so good. And then they managed to basically, like, they're the light. And the broken rainbow looks like angel wings. Shut up. Shut up. And she's like, Homura-chan, you're not afraid. She's like, no, I'm fine. I won't hesitate any longer. Yep, and she made up her mind. And they ended up breaking out and destroying the barrier. And there's just like all these freaking Kyubeis on Stonehenge and everything looking terrifying as F. And they all get obliterated in that moment, but we know that they're not fully gone. And Kyubei's like, I don't understand at all. So yeah, so Homura wakes up. They place her broken soul gem back. Everybody's getting brought back that was in the witch world. We're back on the dais. Now the tower's destroyed. And so they're like, what do we do? And so then Madoka starts to appear. The law of the cycle. But that's what Kyubei wanted. Kyubei wanted her to appear along with the others. To be able to look at the law of the cycle and examine it. So she shows up. Well, there's quite a bit of unnecessary interference. But they come in their like Grim Reaper wagon, ready to take Homura back to the afterlife. But Homura knows that the moment they do that, Kyubei is going to try to take her over. And she's like, I'm sorry I made you wait so long. You've worked so hard all this time. And she's like, now let's go. And we'll be together from now on. And she's like, yes, we will. I've waited so long for this. And then she makes the ultimate move. And I'm like, yes. And her smile. Oh my God. Oh, that moment. Oh my gosh. Was like, what are you doing? But it all makes sense now. Yep. And her like grabbing her. Saying, I finally got you. Oh, yes. And I love that everything just goes completely black. And the soul gem just like crumbles open. Yes. And then what did she say? No one in the world could possibly understand The emotion is mine alone. It is for Madoka alone. She's like, I would do a lot of things for Madoka. The yandere vibes, y'all. Oh, and then it just like the way that it cracks to become that name in the runes. Oh, and then like everything gets thrown off, all of it. And she separates the magical powers from Homura. From Madoka. Homura separates Madoka from her final form to her human form and splinters it. She's like, I told you that I'll never let you go again. Oh, I love it. And like the whole point of the soul gem, it like completely transforms into something else. Oh, this is like, what would you do for the person you love? Well, I would alter time and space for them. Yep. And then her transformation here is just, it's so great, right? It covers up the whole world and reforges it. It makes like an hourglass. The spindle of thread is like an hourglass. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. And Kyubei's like, well, now wait a minute. What are we doing? And so I love the spindle as it falls. Oh, and we see it just unraveling. And then she spits out and just crunches the egg with her teeth. The soul gem. And like all the blood and everything reforges it into the crown of the queen piece there. Yep. And what's so crazy about it is that Homura has this sly, devilish look on her face. And Kyubei's like, the world's being rewritten. Does this mean a new principle's been born into the universe? And then he's like, well, that reminds me, you don't remember the last time, do you? When this happened before. And Kyubei's like, she's like, this is the second time I've seen this. And Kyubei's like, but what's happening? And he's like, what are you meddling in, Homura? I love this kaleidoscope. What have you changed? And her smile, oh, it's so devilish. I love it. And he's like, I don't believe this. Your cursed blackened soul gem, your very soul should have vanished. But it's the power of love, right? Why? Because I finally remembered all the times I repeated history, all the pain and injuries I suffered over and over again. That was proof of my feelings for Madoka. So now even pain is dear to me. And it was not even curses that soiled my soul gem. It was love. It's just, oh my God. And I love that Kyubei, she's like, something you have no chance of ever understanding, Incubator. The power of love. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it so much. It's the pinnacle of all human emotion. More passionate than hope, fear, and despair. And I love she eats it again, like she absorbs it back into her body, like she reclaims it. And it's love. And then we have like the salamander with the upside down wings. Oh. And Kyubei, I love it zooms on Kyubei and he's like, well then what are you now? You're not a witch. I'm not a magical girl or a witch. And I love her the transformation here. What are you trying to become? I love it. I love that she's like, yes, you're right. I love her smile there where she's like, she finally figures out what she gets to be to save Madoka. Mm-hmm. I'm not even a witch any longer. And then like bursts out the black wings. I pulled that sacred godlike entity down from heaven, overcoming her authority. Oh my gosh, I want to get the close-up of her. And yeah, just everything about it. It's so good because she did it for love. Yep, with the red ribbon. A being that could perform such feats could only be called a demon, I suppose. And then it comes in like, does the fishbowl eyes for Kyubei? Does the damn fishbowl eyes for Kyubei? And Kyubei's like, oh, well, this makes it very clear. This is my favorite part. He's like, oh, this makes it very clear. You're trying to, humans are just too dangerous. We can't possibly like capitalize off of their emotions anymore. We need to get the hell out of here. And she's like, oh, no. No, you're not going anywhere. You're going to stay. we're very unpredictable, but you're gonna stay and clean up. I love that she's like, oh, is that so? I love he tries to run away and she grabs him and she's like, we'll need someone to handle all the curses that have spread throughout our world. Someone's got to take care of all of those. And that's where you come in. Oh my God, I love it. You'll be sticking around to help. Oh my God, Incubator. Oh my gosh, and her just like nuzzling his little face. Oh my God, the karmatic destiny. Uh-huh. Yep. And then the spindle of time. Oh my God. So then from there, we see like, I love that she is represented as the table with the black umbrella and the tea set in the shade. I love that that's her representation. And she goes to all of them and explains now that she has like the little thing on her ear and everything. That she basically, now mommy doesn't remember anything about her. She just sees the black feather. The sign that she's there. Meanwhile, Kyoko's feeding all of the blackbirds. And Sayaka's the one that takes umbrage with her, which of course she does. Because Sayaka's the one that had been in the other world. She's like, don't you realize what you've done? As you have the umbrella with the runes on it. And she's like, oh, so you know what's happened. And she's like, yeah, I was with Madoka. She's like, you've broken off a part of the law of the cycle. The power of salvation that was a hope to all magical girls. And I love her, like, her hand motions through all this is so, like, it's so sexual, but that's kind of part of her now. She's a demon. She's just like, I just took a tiny piece of it. And, oh my God, like, that whole scene with the hand, she's like, I just took a little piece. Because, oh, evil Homura is kind of amazing. Just the records of the person that Madoka was before she ceased to exist. Yep. So she's like, I just basically took back everything that happened before, but all of you wound up being pulled in instead, and you can't return to wherever you were before. So seems I rewrote history. Oopsie daisy. And she's like, well, what right do you have to do all this? And she's like, because I love her. That's why. She's like, I am now in existence known as evil. Oh my gosh. Yep. And all the, like, jumping off a being who disrupts providence and acts as an agitator for this world. It's natural that I should upset the laws set down by a god, don't you think? Oh my God. And she did it all because she loves Madoka. Oh, I freaking love it. And the sad thing is Sayaka, she's like, do you intend to destroy the universe? And she's like, well, after all the wraiths have been destroyed, perhaps I will. And that's what lets me believe that maybe they could do another movie when she says she might destroy the universe after all the wraiths are done. But when that time comes, I suppose I can be your enemy. Oh, but do you think you'll be able to stand against me, Miki Sayaka? And then she disappears and takes away her memories. Yep. So yeah, I hate the memory change narrative, but the whole thing about it is, the thing that I'm okay with it in this case with her is that we see like the river Styx next to the river that is humanity. Oh my God. Oh. The thing that gets me about it is that she takes away their memories to give them a chance to live their life the way that it was. And yeah, there's a threat that she's like, yeah, if I destroy all the wraiths and I'm still feeling like it, I might, might destroy the world and then you guys will have to fight me. So I guess we'll see what happens then. But she's like, in the meantime, you all will get to live your lives and I'll just be here to watch and observe. But, I mean, like, it gives Sayaka another chance to live. It gives Madoka another chance to live. It gives them all another chance without Kyubey trying to target them. She takes on all of that. Oh. She's like, I think I was a part of a larger being before. She's like, I can't remember what it was anymore. I'm not supposed to be here. And she's like, just enjoy your second chance. Oh, someday you'll forget all that happened in the past. And this place will seem perfectly natural to you. And if that happens, the one thing I'll never forget, even if that happens, the one thing I'll never forget is that you are a demon. And Sayaka didn't trust her from the beginning. And like, it's like fate. All of that was justified why she didn't trust her. Oh. And Homura with the black feathers and the smile being like, whatever. Oh. We should at least pretend to be friendly in our day-to-day lives. If you act confrontational all the time, she may come to dislike you. Which is Madoka. Oh. Damn. Homura's heel turn is so good. It's so freaking good. It's so good. But yeah, so Homura shows up in the class, where Homura's there and Madoka's there with the yellow string, the golden string, which just connects to her eyes and her like godliness. And then she takes her again. We go back to that first episode where she takes her away. I like she has the pink lip tint, right? She just has a little bit more desire on her. And then she's like, this feels different somehow. And she's like, well, you've been away for 3 years, right? With that alternate story. And then that's when she stops. I love the black and white socks. She's like, it feels like the only thing that's changed is me. And for a second, Madoka comes back and they realize. And she's like, that's right. I should have a different form. That didn't take long. Didn't take long at all. And for a second, she's like, a different role. She starts to question whether she should be back to being a deity before, right? And she's like, so why? Why am I doing this? And right as she's about to like leave and go back, Homura stops her. And stops her from going back to that destiny. And then she's like, no, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not going to let Kyubey get you. She's like, you are exactly what you were always meant to be. Oh, I love this idea that Homura has to stay on this planet until Kyubey and his people leave so that she can make sure that Homura is not hurt. And then you can see in that moment where the cosmos and everything is swirling around them, it looks like Kyubey's eye, like he's watching them in that moment. And she's like, no, 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 we're not going to go back to that. And then it dispels. Like it almost backfired, everything she did. Oh. And she's like, do you treasure this world? What she asked her back from the beginning. But then she adds, do you consider stability and order more important than desire? And Madoka's like, well, yeah, I do treasure it. So you have Madoka being over here, wanting order and stability. And then you have Homura with desire. So again, the angel and the demon. Yep. There is like a Berserk angle to this, and I'm realizing that. The difference is, though, that it's love. That rather than a certain character in Berserk doing everything for their own selfish desires and for their own greed and ambition, here it's for love. It's for the sake of saving someone that they love so much they're willing to become a demon for them. And you could probably compare that to other characters in Berserk, but I'm seeing the parallels. I guess I do think it's bad to break the rules because you feel like it. Which is exactly what Homura did, right? Which sets them up as possibly being rivals. She's like, it's okay. Then I suppose one day you'll become my enemy. And then she gives her like, she's like, but I don't care because even then, as she ties, I will continue to wish for a world in which you're going to be happy. Oh. Yep. And she's like, they really do look better on you after all. Oh my God. Yep. And so then there's like none of them up on the rooftop, none of them taking orders from Kyubey, none of that. Everything's back to normal. There's like the two trees and the footprints, like all the symbolism here of the two between them. Oh my God. Yep. And then the two, like Kyoko and Sayaka getting to have a life together. Oh my God. And then all of the other magical things. We see Mommy and Bebe with the cheese. Country of Sweets, good morning. And the salamander on it. And Madoka getting to be with her family. That was the one thing I regretted, was Madoka didn't get to be with her family, and now she does. All because of Homura. Oh, yep. God, it's so good. This movie's great. I love this movie so much. And then we see like the window in the sky watching over, and the portrait of Madoka as the god. Ah. So yeah, so then we have the Edie, which is basically Madoka and Homura becoming besties. And then we end with the final scene, which I'm so glad we get this last scene of her like sitting in the chair on the cliff. Which she's by herself. She's back in that point by herself there. But, and I like it's the half moon and everything. Like she's cut in half. Like half of her is, you know, she sacrificed that to save Madoka. But then we see Kyubey coming back, right? This raggedy old Kyubey who's been killing curses. And then she sees like the mark with the soul gem there. And her dancing around. Dancing around the frazzled, destroyed Kyubey like she's just torturing him. Uh-huh. And her with the half moon. God, I love it. God, everything about this scene is just like him getting his comeuppance. Even though she looks tired. And then her falling off the cliff. Oh. And little raggedy Kyubey. Oh my God. Like him forced to do the curses. Oh, well, I talked for 2 hours. Okay. Shit. I said I wasn't going to, and I ended up doing it. Oh my God. So yeah. I love this. This series. It's so flawless. I love it. It's so good. I get to read all the fanfic now. The floodgates are open. I can see all the fan art, all the fan fiction. I'm so excited. I will be honest with y'all. I've not encountered a lot of Yuri. I'm a big yaoi fan, but I've not encountered a lot of Yuri or girls love. This has definitely opened doors. It has opened up doors. Let me tell you that. I'm like kind of all about it for them. Good for them. Good for her. But yeah, so I guess I'll keep you around, Kyubey, since you've got to ward off evil spirits. Since now he has to do the job of the magical girls from now on. Yay! So yeah, the live stream, that's gonna happen. So I hope y'all can tune into that. If not, I will have the live stream on Patreon, and then later on in July, I'll have some more Puella Magi Madoka Magica content to tally up for the rest of the series. So with that being said, I hope y'all have an amazing week. Thank you not only to Geen for moderating, but thank you, Anthony, and Cyber for offering, but Anthony for getting me the files to have the best experience with this series. I am so glad I saw this series. I love it so much. It's amazing. 10s across the board. And I can't wait to get a little bit more into the content later on in July and to talk to you all about this series. So I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Bye.